Right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Cabinet meeting on the 6th of May 2025. The first item is to receive apologies for absence, and we have apologies from Councillor Shies and Councillor Withington. The second item is to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 31st of March. Were there any questions or clarity needed in respect of the minutes? If not, I will propose they are accepted. Okay, that's seconded by Councillor Frederick. Yeah, Councillor Fredericks. And just a vote for all those in favour, please. Harry, yeah. Okay, sure. Okay, unanimous and one abstention. Well, bar one abstention, I should say. And item 3 is public questions and statements. I don't believe we have any. Were there any declarations of interest under item 4? Councillor Fredericks, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I have a non-pecuniary interest when it comes to the item regarding our premises being leased.
That is item 10, yes?
Thank you, yeah.
Yeah. And is that you are staying out of the vote on that one?
Yeah, I'll stay out the vote and the discussion if that's okay, Chair.
Okay, thank you so much. Were there any other declarations of interest on items on the agenda? No. Okay. Item 5 is items of urgent business. And there is an item to report to you in respect of section 151 provision for the council. So following the council's Director of Resources leaving the authority at the end of April, it's necessary for the council to appoint under section 151 of the Local Government Act 1972 a chief finance officer. The council's deputy section 151 officer, Daniel King, I should say. Apologies, Daniel, if you're listening. Assistant Director of Finance and Assets has agreed to take on the statutory role for the month of May, whilst interim arrangements are made to cover the designation with another local authority in Norfolk, pending advertising and recruiting a new Director of Resources. A report on the appointment of an interim section 151 officer resource will be prepared for the full council meeting of the 21st of May 25. In the meantime, Daniel King will take on this responsibility, supported by Deputies Jenny Carroll, Chief Group Accountant, and Claire Waplington, the Chief Technical Accountant. And those arrangements have been put in place under delegation to the Chief Executive, exercising urgency provisions as advised by the Monitoring Officer. Okay. Item 6 is member questions. Were there any member questions at this stage? No. Item 7, it doesn't appear there are any recommendations from the Scrutiny Committee. I don't know if there was anything you wish to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As it says here, no, there are no recommendations to be made on this occasion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dixon. Item 8 is reporting progress implementing corporate plan for 23 to 27 and the action plan, specifically the end of quarter, the quarter 4 report to the 31st of March 2025. So therefore the last report for that year. So thank you to all members and officers for their contributions towards numerous outcomes over the year 24-25, and of course also to officers for the production of this report. And there was further appreciable and certainly still ongoing progress in the final quarter towards our strategic objectives. And as a quick roundup, you'll be aware, obviously, some of you took part in it, that the local plan hearings took place as scheduled, and congratulations to all of the officers that contributed to that going so smoothly, really, and to councillors as well for the representations. And we obviously look forward to receiving further information and response in the coming weeks or months, I should say. If you look towards item two and 3, you can see we've obviously achieved the climate literacy bronze status and finalised the installation of the North Walsham array, solar array, which are both fantastic achievements. So thank you for those. In respect of item 4, that obviously relates to business that we're dealing with today in respect of the procurement of vehicles and equipment to meet the aim of beginning a food waste collection service as mandated by the government as well. And that's obviously, as I say, relevant to today's meeting itself. Looking towards item 9, not an insubstantial appraisal there of the numerous consultation events which have taken place over the course of the last year. There may have even been further ones, but those were the ones that came to my mind. So, you know, quite a significant amount of work actually there overall. Looking towards item 11, some continued efforts to sustain, invest and sustain facilities there, albeit in the absence of any national funding to carry out further investment in changing places at this time. The following investments will take place at Hull Country Park, and that's certainly an investment in an important site in terms of its future sustainability, which is something we strive to do, and certainly within the current and emerging context. The following item, item 12, is one of the 2 we cancelled within the action plan. So we've only cancelled 2, and that was really as a result of the longevity any policy development would really have given local government reorganisation. Moving over to 16, we've obviously got ongoing work at Cromer presently in terms of replacing the 3G, or installing, I should say, the 3G pitch. And hopefully that's to be followed by Fakenham and at some point in the future, North Walsham as well. Item 20, you know, a significant achievement really by several authorities, but this premium has obviously been implemented and is now in the first phase of collection. So we'll monitor both the collection and the use of that revenue moving forward. Item 22 is in respect of the inspections, and we exceeded that target, in fact, in respect of the HMO rented accommodation inspections, and that's being replaced by a new target within the next, or as I should say, current annual action plan. So, you know, that work has been, I think, increasingly important in recent years, and welcome the work that's been done. Item 24, very welcome and well-received events in March. You know, I'd certainly attended one of them in Holcombe, and others got to other events, and I know that I got feedback about Sheringham as well in terms of the cultural focus there. And you know, I'm very pleased with the outcomes there, and it prompted actually some further visits and meetings and discussion with businesses following that. And 25, in respect of Bagton, extremely successful summit, and I think it proves that we're ready for the investment and change that we'll see at Bagton over the coming years. In respect of 27 and Cash Access, so further discussions with Cash Access UK have occurred, and we know it's their intention to provide a facility in North Walsham now, in addition to the work that's been going on at Holt. Obviously, they're still in the position of having a temporary facility at Holt, moving towards a permanent one in future, and we'll obviously stick with this item on an ongoing basis into the next annual action plan. It's a changing position, but obviously one we need to ensure continues to help sustain our town centres and cash access. With respect to 29, we've recently agreed a new outline programme following confirmation of funding, albeit disappointing. This has reduced, despite the Brexit promises, but we'll continue to make the very most of that again and continue to deliver as we have done previously. Respect of 34, further progress towards areas in the peer review, and that's also reflected under item 42 on the following page. And it's important we continue to invest in staff for the future. 43 is the other cancelled objective, but we are seeking to meet many of those aims. In fact, probably diversified the aims a little bit in different ways, both using the UK SPF, and you're aware of possibly the work that's been going on at the country parks. So, whilst it's not been possible to resource the work we were doing originally, or we'd originally anticipated, there's still some very good youth engagement. And finally, just to point out, in respect to the last items, the audits, the audit has been completed, so it's a very welcome piece of work. So overall, I'm really pleased with the progress towards achieving objectives over the year, and many of these objectives, of course, continue into the year ahead. We didn't expect to close them down this year, of course. Okay, so were there any questions in respect of the Q4 report for the action plan? Councillor Hodday, go ahead.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to see the report with all the progress. I'm having a certain amount of impatience from my parishes about the connectivity, and I don't know that the progress that we're making, that they would be happy with the green rating, because there's still I on a regular basis get complaints, and I'm dealing with villages that just aren't connected, and I'm not quite sure that the evidence base is how far it's progressing, and it doesn't seem to be helping on the ground. And I don't know how long we've got to actually work with this, because people are really upset about it. Thank you.
Can I just clarify, Councillor Hodday, are you talking here about mobile phone connectivity or internet connectivity, or both?
It depends which village you talk about.
I can understand.
Some of them are mobile and some of them are broadband.
Yeah. I used to be a tradesman working in a lot of the villages in your patch, and I remember trying to gain mobile phone connectivity was a rather frustrating exercise in some of the coastal villages, but I've got no impression of what the internet connectivity is like, but I presume it's challenged in some locations. So thank you, that was useful.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for raising it again, and I'm happy that we keep it high profile. I've obviously had a change of lead officer, and I need to catch up with the new lead officer to get him up to speed, and I'm hopeful soon that we're right to government. It's not for us. We will not be able to deliver that. We can encourage. What I'm trying to do is get engagement, so that you will have experiences of trying to talk to individual companies. I'll have experiences of it. Everybody will have a different experience, and we should have the same experience, and we should have a single place to go. And that's what we're trying to achieve from this. So the evidence base is to show that there is this difference of delivery throughout North Norfolk, and we need to resolve that so that we can go there. In terms of the question of, why don't sites get delivered? Because we don't have sufficient information and engagement from these companies, we can't go to local residents and say, this is how it fits in, and this is why it needs to be done. We just have a planning team from the companies that come along and say, we want to put a mast here, and you say, well, what? And they can't really tell you. So in terms of, have we moved anywhere? No. Do I expect it to happen overnight? No. Do I want it for residents? Yes. It's something I've been working on a long while before it even became this part of the plan and we've moved to where we can. So it's important that we get messages out to people. So for example, thank you again for the extra data. A particular village didn't have a Vodafone signal, but actually if there's another signal and they dial 999, it will connect on their mobile phone. You don't have to be on that network for it to work. So there's a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding, which is not consistent. I've joined national things where BT are trying to do stuff, but if you talk to Virgin, they're doing something different and it's not happening nationally. So whilst that hasn't answered your question, I can assure you that the work is ongoing. I do not expect it to happen in the short term to be any difference, but we're looking at our surveyors allotments to see if we can offer some of them up, but we need the companies to come and talk to us. So it's a bit like where we were with Anglian Water. There was an us and them, and we didn't have that. And we've built that relationship with Anglian Water. That's what I'm trying to do with the companies. But of course, they're all different. And there's not one governing body except government who aren't governing it. They're throwing billions of pounds at it and it's not happening. So I'm sorry it doesn't answer your question. I'd love to say we've got 20,000 bits of data and we can do this with it. The data is to grow a picture beyond the, we know we've got stuff from county where they're looking for knock spots and things like that. But what I wanted from people was this evidence of your different experiences of how you get that information locally, where you as individual councillors have tried to help, and that we could then go along and say, we need one place to talk to, and this is why. So that's kind of where I'm at. So yes, I intend to be catching up with Officer Quick to follow this on now that we've changed the lead officer, and hopefully we can, when we're ready to send letters, I will, where it's appropriate, make them public and make that so people know that we're trying to make progress. So please keep raising it though. I want it at the top of the agenda, and the more people that hear it, the better. Thank you.
Absolutely. So we're obviously open-minded in terms of any policy changes we might need to make, but we don't think that's necessarily the issue. We're obviously dealing with a very fragmented picture in terms of all the different providers. But as you've heard, we're willing to go as far as even providing land. There has been a practical intervention recently, or perhaps it's ongoing, in respect of the network monitoring attached to refuse vehicles, as I understand.
That's been done by county.
Yeah.
And I hope to get their data because they only collect it once every 6 months.
Yeah. Okay. So that should be forthcoming, I guess. So that would be interesting. So because previously there was an assessment made using train lines and the primary road network, as I understand. That was some years ago now, wasn't it? That was probably about 6-7 years ago. But of course, our refuse vehicles go everywhere, or at least to every domestic premises and many commercial as well. So we'll certainly be looking forward to scrutinising that in future as well. Was there anything further you wanted to say? Just use the microphone.
A time frame would be good. It would give some comfort to the parishes. And I think there is, it's not just 999. You can't do transactions because you can't get your code and all that stuff. It's the whole of life really in some of the villages. And I think we need to be a little bit more proactive as far as the different providers are concerned. And, it's all very well putting a mast up that's only going to serve O2 when you've got everyone else is on EE or Vodafone or whatever. And I think it's such an unjoined up conversation that we need to start joining up the conversation as well as getting the evidence base, because I think just getting the evidence base and then joining up the conversation, you'll be way behind the curve. So and then the FTTP rollout. I'm just communicating with Openreach at the moment, and it's just, there are pockets that are completely abandoned, and I just don't think that's fair on North Norfolk really. So it's not just mobile, it's also broadband. Again, it's very fragmented, but you get to a certain level and you can't go any further. And so I think we need to, you won't necessarily get the evidence base for both of them, the broadband and the mobile, because people won't necessarily speak to you about that. So it's going to be patchy, but if we could just start with the ones that we know are problems and really go for them, it would be, it seems iniquitous that we get such poor service because we're out in the sticks. So I guess I want to go further and faster and build and get the joined upness at the same time as the evidence base, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the joined upness is the issue. I mean, they talked about a combined rural network, and it's not, as you say, they'll put a mast up and it delivers just for 2 companies and not for all of them, but they'll call it combined network. And actually those 2 companies are the same company, just under different names. And that is the real issue. If you go to county, they'll get a different story of how they engage. And yes, it is that joined up, and that's really where I'm going. I always feel it's better though if I write something that says, I've now collected this information and this is the differences across here and this is why we need to address it, rather than saying we've got an issue and we need it addressing. So we're not far off of that. And could I give you a time scale? I'd like to think within the next month that I will be writing to people to start to pull this together. The trouble is they'll always put on commercially sensitive. They'll put that hat on and then not share information with you. And that's why we need to get government to change that policy in terms of how it's delivered and how it's rolled out. So ultimately, that's where we're aiming, is to get a national strategy that ultimately will give us the delivery that we want in North Norfolk. So yeah, I absolutely agree with you. We do need to get these people talking together, but they always put that commercial hat on. That's always an issue. So thank you.
I think our influence in this space is one of largely lobbying and making representations. I would suggest that corporately we might want to consider whether this is an ask in terms of the proposed mayor for Norfolk and Suffolk, because I think it will be an issue that covers a larger geography. And I think in asking for what we want from that mayoral combined authority, perhaps it should be one of the things that you suggest we need here in North Norfolk.
And certainly that will be a matter of focus for the authorities working together to try and build that to-do list for the mayoral combined county authority moving forward. So certainly hoping to work together to achieve that. Christopher, did I see an intervention?
Thank you, Stuart. I'd like to bring you back, if I may, to item number 27, which refers to working with partners in Fakenham to retain a banking and post office facility. So it refers specifically to Fakenham. I realise that delivery of this is not within the gift of this council, so your role is actually to facilitate and work with others. But given that we have had no banking hub established by September of last year, given that we have Lloyds Bank closing in July of this year, no sign of a post office, and indeed the post office in neighbouring Little Snoring is actually closing in July, we are far worse off than this coming summer than we have been ever before. So I just think my residents will be a little bit bemused that we're reviewing this as a RAG status green, therefore implying everything's on track. So
Well,
can you explain the RAG status to me, please?
I'm happy to defend it, whilst we certainly supported provision of a bank hub through data, and also we were considering whether we could come up with some sort of practical intervention ourselves. That wasn't supported at that time by Cash Access UK. They wanted to see an enhanced deposit solution to ensure there was still cash access for businesses. I think that will change over time. I think it's developing picture, and I think there's an awful lot of locations in the system at the moment across the country, because we will, despite what one operator is saying, we will gradually see all of the high street banks leave the high street, and something will need to take place. It's not just about cash access. There's other banking products as well that people still require, and so far so good. The model has been appraised. We're very much seeing the infancy of this at the moment. So Holt achieving that status that we would see a bank hub was a huge achievement. And that was assisted by our data officer, continuing to do that for Fakenham, and more or less independently of ourselves, they've said North Walsham needs that in future. So this is an ongoing bit of work. from now on, but we can't obviously control the outcomes in terms of Cash Access UK and Link and the sort of interventions that they feel are necessary, having looked at the information that we provide them. But that dialogue is of course ongoing. But I'm satisfied that there's been a lot of progress. There's certainly a lot to do in future, and clearly we're not going to lose sight of that because it's within the next action plan as well.
Fine. I want the point I guess I'm making is Green seems to be overmarking yourself on that. I don't think most. I mean, it's not probably neither here nor there for many people, but it does. I just
I think it's
it
ground-
implies that
we're sort of
implies that something's on track.
Doing the same thing we did for the last two meetings, and I think we'll close that one down because we've done enough of it. If that's okay, Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question relates to item 43 on the Youth Council work, and I note this was shown as red in the previous quarter and is now currently amber. I wonder if you can just tell us a little bit more in material terms what justifies that move from red to amber.
So as I said, we did cancel the item in respect of the Youth Council Saturday, which is unable to resource that work. So was eventually wasn't something we wanted to see as an outcome. And we would have liked to have continued that work. It was well received, but just impossible, sadly, for us to continue. But what we are doing is achieving a level of youth engagement with the council and ensuring there is an understanding of the level of the council's work through other means. So I don't have a lot of information about the UK SPF funded work, but we are doing some activity at the country parks as well, which has been well received and popular. And essentially the amber rag rating is an assessment of the fact that we're achieving some of what we wanted to, but in a different way. So it's not going to be the same outcome, of course, because we've not got a formalised youth council. But we're certainly satisfied to a certain extent that we're ticking some boxes there. But I don't know if there's anything you wanted to say, Councillor Toy.
Thank you, Chair. So the UK SPF bit is kind of indirect, where we've supported projects that are supporting youth. Therefore, they know that the council's involved. So that's kind of the indirect side on that. On the other side, of course, as part of my portfolio, there's engagement in education and training as well. So we're involved with the youth on that aspect, so that the council is not disconnected from the youth, and we take the opportunities that we can, but we're clearly not able to do it in the way that we would have liked with a youth council. But keeping our profile there, that the council is part of their life and the delivery of the services and that are around them, and giving them the opportunity to engage is I think how we're doing this, Chairman. So.
Anything else? Go ahead.
Well, thank you for that. I just struggle to kind of, and these are the words obviously that are in the report. We are exploring other ways of engaging with young people rather than hosting a youth council, and I just struggle to find that material means to move that from red to amber, but that's a judgment call.
To a certain extent it is, but we feel we are achieving some of those aims in a different way, and that's reflected. Different from bank hubs because there is ongoing progress towards the overall goal. It's changed slightly. Okay. Any other questions in respect of the annual action plan? If not, we can note the report and move on to item 9. I want to just say thank you to officers again for the production of the annual action plan report. Item 9 is the procurement of vehicles and containers for weekly food waste collection, for a weekly food collection waste collection service. Councillor Ringer, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I won't go into too much detail because we've been here before quite recently to talk about this. But this is sort of the second half of the paper that we passed at full council a couple of weeks ago, which gives delegated authority to the corporate director for communities and the section 151 officer in consultation with myself and the portfolio holder of finance to pursue the procurement of the vehicles and equipment required to deliver the food waste collection service. Thank you.
Yeah, so nice and simple, really, in terms of the approval of the delegated authority, as you can see here, which is slightly in contrast to the work that was done at full council, but of course substantially moved ahead after the full council meeting itself. So I presume we probably had a lot of discussion on this already at the full council meeting. I thank officers again for the production of the report and all of the work that's been precipitated as a result of this coming forward. Of course, there are lots of pressures on local authorities to deliver this in the context of the government trying to do it all at once in the rural areas and the division of items, equipment, procurement pressures that might emerge, but obviously we're working towards achieving that goal. So is there any questions from members? Councillor Fredericks, go ahead.
I'd just like to clarify what we're actually voting on, and it's not about how many vehicles and what they're going to do. It's actually to give delegated authority to the corporate director of communities and the section 151 officer in consultant with the portfolio holder. So that is what we're voting on. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. If there are no questions, I will second the recommendation from Councillor Ringer. Can we have a vote for all those in favour, please? Yeah, that's unanimous. Thank you. Item 10 is the North Norfolk Visitor Centre letting. So I'm introducing this item in Councillor Shire's absence today. I will also remind members there are exempt appendices which contain commercially sensitive information from a number of different businesses, and this should not be discussed in open session by anyone in the room during the open meeting. But my expectation, of course, is that we can avoid getting into closed session today, but keep this in mind should members feel it's necessary to discuss that detail within, and we can move to closed session and return to the decision thereafter. And I wish to first of all begin by recognising the work and commitment of staff who have ensured the Visitor Information Centre was a vibrant and welcoming place, and that this continued to have such a good reputation. But of course, whilst we would love to have continued that for years ahead, with a physical full-time tourist information centre, which is of course increasingly rare in a national context. Fortunately, both the financial context of the authority and the usage in terms of stock turnover has changed significantly in recent years, such that this was no longer possible. The tourism and visitor economy, of course, remains very strong, and we'll be investing more resources into the continued work of our destination management organisation, Visit North Norfolk, which is helping to drive visitor numbers across multiple platforms, including newspapers, internet and physical marketing, and I think doing a very good job indeed, and certainly a focus in terms of bringing visitors to North Norfolk. And the signs are good so far this year. I mean, recently we've heard that there were 13,000 additional visitors to our car parks in March, sorry, in April, I should say, who used pay and display alone. So that excludes the pay and display. So it excludes the app payments. That is just the pay and display. And we've already had some pressures in terms of litter and street cleansing provision due to the visitor numbers, which Councillor Ring has certainly been involved in as a result of those peak demand levels. But in respect of the building, its contents, the deep history coast fixtures and items, and other items associated with the operation of the now former Tourism Information Centre will be given to Sheringham Museum and Holt Town Council. But as a result of advertising this space, I believe we had somewhere around 16 expressions of interest. It may be more actually, resulting in 8 formal submissions to us to consider, which have been assessed ahead of the decision which we want to make today. And I thank all of those prospective tenants for their interest in detailed submissions, which actually gave me a lot of confidence about the future of the high street in my own town, knowing the level of interest from such a variety of different business operations. A number of these proposals were really very good indeed, and I hope they find a space regardless of the outcome in terms of this tenancy. However, in consideration of the best value and impact on service provision for the locality, we feel an NHS-backed dentist will represent the most advantageous outcome. And clearly, well, I suppose you could come up with an expression, rare as hen's teeth or something like that in terms of NHS dentistry, but one is an NHS-backed dentist is obviously approached ourselves here. However, if for any reason the tenancy were not to proceed, we will obviously have another look at other proposals and submissions. And as I said, I've tried to appraise briefly the strength of those. There were some very, very good and very valuable businesses within those submissions. So that's probably enough from me on that. Just to propose the recommendation as detailed over 1 and 2, and that the if there are any any need to secure alternative provisions, we'll obviously do that at a later date, but the dentist being our preferred tenancy. Councillor Toy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so I'd like to second what you said about the work done by the staff that have already left us now, but and thank them for that. I'd also like to thank officers for working through this, because this would have been a considerable amount of work. And just like to say I'm pleased about the recommendations come forward. If we look at 3.2, where it says they've reviewed and assessed the bids, blah, blah, blah. General Disposal Consent Order 2003, which considers issues of economic, social and environmental well-being, that it's balanced beyond just the money.
Yeah.
And I'm pleased that this has come forward out of the options put towards us, and I'd be happy to second it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Toy. Absolutely. Yeah, it's quite rich really. What's moving forward? Go ahead, Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody. Can you confirm it will be an NHS dentist?
I have used the term 3 times, I think, during my.
I missed that, sorry.
So it's an NHS-backed dentist. I don't think there's such a thing as an NHS provider as such, but as in NHS led, but it's an NHS backed provision. So certainly will be valuable in the local context, and we see, I'm sure all of us as representatives, those representations, social media posts and all sorts of other levels of concern raised about the access to dentistry. So yeah, in consideration of both the financial value in terms of the tenancy, but the greater context in terms of service provision, we felt this was the best option.
No, because
at the moment, the current NHS provision is unable to do anything other than billings and inspections in Cromer because they cannot get full dentistry offer. And the private dentist on the Norwich Road is full up. I know that personally because I need a dentist. I've resolved it, but no, there is great concern, and I do hope that yes, it's a great idea, but can you get staff?
So, I mean, I don't think they would. They're a reputable provider, and I think they've detailed within the commercially sensitive appendices the level of staffing. So we won't go into that in any depth, but you know, I'm hoping we can be reasonably confident that there's going to be a good outcome here in terms of dental provision. So certainly not within our control, and you know, obviously if anything didn't materialize here, we've got a number of other options. One thing I was never worried about was this building remaining empty due to its location. It was designed to have a heavy footfall, and of course, one thing none of us have said, and just to stress again, I think we've probably said it more than enough times. The toilets, public toilets, are remaining open, and obviously, this change has provoked some concern that we might be removing those public toilets, and that's certainly not the case. Or for the most part, remain a public building.
Good morning. I just, obviously, being a member of the ward for Cromer, I'd just like to say a few words because it was really challenging to lose our tourist information centre, and I had built up a great relationship with the people that had worked there for many years, and I know what a loss to the town it is. But I also know from sitting on the Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee in Norwich that dentistry is one of the biggest problems, and we are still one of the worst dental deserts in the country. So bearing in mind that we are sitting here as a council to look after our residents, we haven't got a one size fits all. We do have to make choices, and I do think that for our residents, this is the best possible outcome we could hope for, much as we'll miss the Tourist Information Centre, and obviously there were all the other options as well. But I do think that this is the most sensible option for the well-being of our people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boyne. Absolutely. Okay, so I'm not seeing any further interventions, and again, further to what Councillor Toy said, just thank officers for their work in well, towards this anticipated outcome, and over quite a quick turnover really in terms of timescales. You know, it's obviously closed on the 30th, and we're trying to move ahead with this new tenancy. But it's been proposed by myself and seconded by Councillor Toy. Can I take a vote of all of those in favour, please? Yeah, and that's besides Councillor Fredericks, unanimous, who was abstained. Okay, thank you.